My name is Natalie Allen. I'm 31, and until 3 days ago, I thought my life with Daniel was perfect. We'd been together for 4 years, living in a cozy two-bedroom apartment in Seattle, sharing bills, meals, and weekend routines that felt effortless. Daniel worked as a software engineer, quiet but dependable, or so I thought. I've always been careful with money. My investment account was separate, my own little fortress built from a decade of discipline, starting with $200 a month in college, increasing contributions as my salary grew, watching it compound quietly into something substantial. I never added Daniel's name. It was mine, meticulously documented, every dividend reinvested. I trusted him. Hell, I loved him. Tuesday morning began like any other. I kissed Daniel goodbye as he left for work at 8 a.m., promising to call me that evening. The apartment smelled faintly of brewed coffee, sunlight bouncing off the hardwood floor. I settled in with my laptop, planning the week ahead, when a ping from my banking app stopped my heart cold. 42,000 withdrawal completed. I stared at the number, unblinking, the coffee cup trembling in my hand. I clicked for details. My account, my meticulously guarded account, had been drained. My stomach twisted. Who? How? Then the notification came. Transaction verified by Daniel. A chill ran down my spine. Daniel, my boyfriend. The man I trusted implicitly. The one whose laughter used to fill the apartment on lazy Sunday mornings. The calm, steady voice who promised partnership, love, security. Had just stolen tens of thousands from me. I called him immediately. No answer. Then a text. Hey, it was just to cover some bills. I'll pay you back. Don't stress. I read it again, disbelief turning to fury. This wasn't borrowing. This was theft. And it wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal, the knowing violation of every trust I had placed in him. Hands shaking, I contacted my broker. Jennifer, a voice I had trusted for years, sounded concerned as she reviewed the account. Natalie, I see the withdrawal. It was verified with your login credentials and security answers. I didn't authorize it, I whispered, my voice barely steady. Technically, someone with your credentials could do it. We can flag it as disputed, but you'll need to file a police report immediately. I sank into the kitchen chair, cold air pressing against my skin. My life had split into two in that instant, the one I thought I had, and this new reality of deception, fear, and legal entanglements. By the evening, I had packed a week's essentials into a duffel bag. My laptop, hard drives, documents, clothes, all the things that were mine. All that Daniel hadn't borrowed because he had no right. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Daniel's name flashed across the screen. 11 missed calls, multiple texts, some pleading, some defensive. Natalie, come home. I'll fix this, please. It was just a loan. I'll pay you back. We're partners. Why are you acting like this? I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a folder on my laptop and started documenting everything. The transaction, the texts, his messages, screenshots of the withdrawal. If this was going to court, or if I wanted to protect myself, I needed every piece of evidence. And deep down beneath the anger and betrayal, a tiny, searing truth settled in. Daniel was not who I thought he was. The man I loved had chosen money over honesty, deception over trust, and I had to face that reality before it consumed me completely. That night, lying on a stiff hotel bed just outside Seattle, I whispered to myself, trembling, "You took everything, but you will not take me." The next morning, Natalie woke before dawn. Her hotel room was quiet, sterile, and a little suffocating, but it was safer than the apartment she'd shared with Daniel, the apartment that had suddenly become a reminder of betrayal. First thing, she logged into her bank accounts again, scanning every transaction. Her eyes traced the numbers like a detective examining a crime scene. $42,000 gone, transferred to an account she didn't recognize. The memo? Just Daniel. Her stomach churned. The audacity, the casualness of it. This wasn't desperation. It was calculated. She called her broker, Jennifer, again. Natalie, I flagged the transaction as disputed, Jennifer said. Her voice was calm but firm. I need a police report filed for this to proceed. Technically, with credentials used, it looks legitimate. Natalie scribbled notes feverishly, her hands shaking. Every detail mattered. Timestamps, IP addresses, messages. She couldn't afford to leave gaps. She thought about Daniel, the man who had been her partner, her confidant, and the realization that he had spent months, maybe years, lying in small ways that now added up to this massive betrayal. She opened a folder on her laptop and started building a timeline. When Daniel last knew her passwords, when he had access to her laptop, each text, each casual check-in, every subtle manipulation she could now identify. Natalie reread his messages, the tone now dripping with false casualness. "It was just to cover some bills. You'll make it back. Don't stress." Do not stress? He had taken nearly half her account and in the same breath demanded her trust. By mid-morning, she had gathered screenshots, transaction records, and text logs, all neatly organized. Then came the hardest part, calling the police. She described the incident, detailing Daniel's knowledge of her credentials, the unauthorized transfer, and the betrayal of trust that went beyond money. The officer listened patiently, his pen scratched across the form as she spoke. "Ma'am, I need you to document everything, screenshots, text messages, emails, anything that proves intent. Because technically, someone with the credentials could argue it was authorized." Natalie's hands tightened around her pen. She didn't just want her money back. She wanted acknowledgement that Daniel had violated her, deliberately, knowingly. Throughout the day, her phone buzzed with Daniel's calls and texts. Each one was a mix of pleading and manipulation. "Natalie, it's not what you think. I'll pay you back. Please don't involve the bank or police. It's a misunderstanding." But Natalie knew better. His words were rehearsed, convenient, and empty. They were meant to disarm her, to make her doubt herself. Instead, they strengthened her resolve. By evening, she sat back in the hotel room, exhausted but focused. Every step she had taken was deliberate, precise. She wasn't just a victim. She was preparing to reclaim her life and her agency. In the stillness, Natalie whispered to herself, letting the weight of betrayal settle into clarity. "You may have taken my money, Daniel, but I will take back control of my life." Her hands hovered over the keyboard. The next step was inevitable: confrontation, legal action, and the emotional reckoning she knew she couldn't avoid. The next evening, Natalie returned to the apartment she had shared with Daniel. The space felt alien, the walls echoing memories now laced with betrayal. She had packed her essentials, leaving most of the furniture behind, everything she couldn't carry herself, but the emptiness made the apartment feel like a stage for the confrontation she knew was coming. Daniel was there, pacing nervously near the kitchen. His face fell when he saw her, but the tension between them was raw, palpable. "Natalie, I can explain," he said, voice low, almost pleading. "Explain," she repeated, her own voice calm but icy. "You took $42,000 from my investment account without asking, and you call that explaining?" Daniel ran a hand through his hair. I needed it. Bills, unexpected expenses. I was going to pay you back. I just didn't want you to worry." Natalie's eyes narrowed. "You didn't want me to worry? Or you didn't want me to see you as irresponsible? Do you know what that feels like, Daniel? You took my life savings, my future, my security, and hid it under a lie." He stepped closer. "I was desperate. I didn't think—" "You didn't think?" Natalie's voice rose, trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "You didn't think about me? About us? You made a choice. You made multiple choices, and each one of them betrayed everything I trusted you with." Daniel's shoulders slumped. His usual confidence, the calm demeanor she had loved, was gone. I thought I was helping. I didn't know how else to fix things." Natalie shook her head. "Helping? Daniel, this isn't helping. This is stealing and lying and destroying the foundation of everything we built." She pulled out her phone, showing him screenshots of the withdrawal, the transaction logs, her communication with the broker. Daniel flinched, looking at the evidence he had tried to hide from. I didn't think you'd take it this seriously," he muttered. "Seriously?" Natalie repeated, voice quivering. "You think it's a joke? This is our life, Daniel. My money wasn't yours to touch, ever." He tried to reach for her hand, but she stepped back, keeping her distance. "Please, we can fix this. I'll pay you back, I swear. Just don't involve the police." Natalie shook her head slowly. "You made your choice. I'm done letting you control the narrative with lies. I've already contacted the bank and filed a report. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about trust, something you clearly don't understand." Daniel's face crumpled with guilt and fear. For the first time, Natalie saw him as someone unmasked, not her partner, but a person who had prioritized convenience over integrity. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "You will pay back the money. You will face the consequences of your actions. And I am leaving. I'm taking back my life." Daniel fell silent. Words failed him as Natalie gathered her things and walked toward the door. Her departure was quiet, deliberate, leaving Daniel with the weight of what he had done. Outside, Natalie exhaled. The air was cold, sharp, but it felt liberating. She had confronted him, drawn the line, and reclaimed the first fragment of her autonomy. The road ahead would be complicated: legal action, financial restitution, emotional recovery, but for the first time in days, Natalie felt a spark of control. In that moment, she whispered to herself, "I will survive this. I will not let him define my life anymore." The next morning, Natalie returned to her new temporary apartment, a small one-bedroom unit 20 minutes from her old place. The quiet was strange, almost surreal, but it felt safe. She unpacked only what she needed: clothes, laptop, important documents, and her journals. Everything else, the furniture, the shared memories, the trinkets from trips, remained behind. Her phone buzzed incessantly. Daniel. Calls, texts, voicemails. Some pleaded, some argued, some tried to manipulate her. "Natalie, please, I'll return the money. Just don't make this a legal battle." "I made a mistake. You know I love you. Why are you doing this?" She ignored them all. Every message was a reminder of betrayal, a lure meant to weaken her resolve. Natalie had no intention of falling for it. Her focus was clear: secure her finances, reclaim her life, and establish boundaries Daniel could not cross again. The bank had frozen her account and initiated a dispute. Jennifer, her broker, kept her updated. By Wednesday afternoon, the $42,000 had been returned. Natalie stared at the balance, the numbers reflecting her careful planning, her years of discipline. Relief washed over her, but it was tempered by anger and sorrow. Daniel had returned the money, but he had also taken something far more valuable: her trust. She changed all her passwords, enabled two-factor authentication, and moved her sensitive files to encrypted storage. Every precaution was now a fortress she built for herself. Natalie reached out to the police to follow up on the report. The officer reassured her that the case was documented, and if Daniel attempted anything further, she would have full protection under the law. She felt a flicker of empowerment. Finally, she was taking action not just to recover money, but to reclaim her life. By Friday, Natalie returned to the apartment she had once shared with Daniel for the final time. She packed the last of her belongings into a small rental truck: her books, personal electronics, and items of sentimental value that belonged solely to her. She left a note on the kitchen counter. "I've signed off the lease. You can continue living here, but I'm taking my life with me. This apartment is no longer ours. It's yours." As she stepped out with the final box, she saw Daniel in the parking lot. He looked disheveled, exhausted, and defeated, far different from the man who had charmed her 4 years ago. "So this is it?" he asked, his voice flat. "Yes," Natalie replied, steady and composed. 4 years, Daniel, and one choice destroyed all of it." He opened his mouth, but she cut him off. "Stop calling it a mistake. This was deliberate. You took my money, my trust, and my security. You made that choice. Now you live with it." Daniel's eyes filled with shame and guilt, but Natalie didn't wait for apologies. She climbed into the truck and drove away, leaving him in the lot, a figure of the past, carrying the consequences of his actions. On the road, she whispered to herself, "I've lost him, but I've found myself." It had been 3 weeks since Natalie walked away from Daniel. Her new apartment was modest, but it was hers. Every corner a symbol of independence, every quiet morning a reminder that she no longer answered to someone else's deceit. Her investment account, once nearly depleted by Daniel's betrayal, had been restored. She had taken additional precautions, changing every password, enabling two-factor authentication, and moving sensitive files to encrypted cloud storage. Each action felt like a stitch, mending the wound left by betrayal. Natalie spent the days rebuilding routines, focusing on work, hobbies, and friends who had stood by her. Some reached out to offer support, others to share concern for Daniel. She listened politely but kept her distance. This chapter wasn't about them, it was about her. Late one evening, she reflected on everything that had happened: the trust she had placed in Daniel, the care with which she had built her life, and the audacity with which he had violated it. Anger still simmered beneath the surface, but it had softened into a hard-earned clarity. "You can't control others," she whispered to herself. "You can only control how you respond." She thought about forgiveness, not for Daniel, but for herself. She had doubted herself, questioned her judgment, and feared the damage might be irreparable. Yet, through meticulous planning, patience, and courage, she had protected herself. Her friends and family celebrated small victories with her. A colleague, unaware of the full story, remarked, "You've got your life back." Natalie smiled quietly, knowing the truth was far more complex. But yes, she had her life back. Through mutual friends, she learned that Daniel had moved back with his parents. The financial consequences of his actions were mounting, and the facade of control he had once wielded had crumbled. Natalie didn't gloat. She had no desire to watch him suffer, but she took solace in knowing he could no longer harm her. On Sunday mornings, Natalie brewed coffee, sat by the window, and let the sunlight spill across her apartment. She planned her future, steady investments, personal goals, and the possibility of love once her heart healed fully. Natalie knew some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. Daniel was one of them. Yet, in letting go, she found a strength she hadn't realized she possessed. The money, the betrayal, the heartbreak, it was all behind her now. Her final thought each night became a mantra. I am not defined by the ones who betray me. I am defined by the choices I make to protect myself, to grow, and to live fully. And with that, Natalie Allen closed the door on the past, embraced the present, and stepped boldly into her future.